Welcome to Stories for Sleep. If you are here, perhaps a long day has just come to a close and your mind is looking for a safe place to rest. At Stories for Sleep, we do not tell stories that require your attention, nor do we offer advice you need to remember. We create slow, gentle, and deep soundscapes, spaces where you can let yourself sink down without effort. Tonight's video invites you to travel alongside rivers, not to explore them through knowledge, but to feel them through your breathing. The most soothing truths about rivers will be shared like a steady current, unhurried, without climax, just slow enough for your body to begin to soften. Rivers existed long before humans, and they will continue to flow even as we close our eyes and sleep. In that patience, there is a very deep sense of safety, the feeling that not everything needs to be controlled by you. So right now, you don't need to do anything at all. Just lie still, listen, and let this current gently carry you into sleep. When night falls, the outside world gradually grows quiet, yet inside our minds, streams of thought often begin to flow more strongly than ever. Perhaps you too have lain there in the calm darkness, your body already tired, but your mind still wandering among memories, worries, and unanswered questions. We live in a rhythm that is too fast, so fast that even when we lie down in bed, consciousness has not yet learned how to stop. And it is precisely in that moment that sleep, the most natural thing of all, becomes difficult to grasp. From the perspective of Carl Jung, the human mind never truly stands still. Even when we close our eyes, the deeper layers of the unconscious continue to move quietly like a river flowing through the dark. Jung believed that if we learn to listen to these primordial symbols, rather than resist them, the mind will naturally return to balance. And among the many ancient symbols that appear throughout human history, the river is one of the most gentle and universal. A river does not rush. It does not argue with rocks, nor does it confront the landscape. It simply flows with patience, bending around obstacles, carrying with it the memory of mountains of soil, of time itself. It is precisely this unhurried movement that makes the river a perfect mirror for the state of mind we need before sleep. A state without force, without control, simply allowing ourselves to drift. In this video, you are invited to listen to the most relaxing truths about the rivers of Earth, not to learn more facts, but to give your mind a safe place to rest. Each story, each image of rivers is told at a slow rhythm, like a whisper meant only for the final hours of the day. Here, science, nature, and psychological depth meet, opening a space where you do not need to do anything at all, except listen. And as you allow these rivers to flow through your imagination, you may begin to notice something simple. Sleep is not something to be conquered. It comes naturally, like water finding its way back to the sea. Tonight, allow yourself to drift with that current and let the rest unfold on its own. Part 1. Opening the silent flow of the earth. Part 1. The silent flow of the earth is not merely an introductory opening, but the first psychological doorway the listener steps through before entering the entire journey. At this point, the script does not need to impress with intensity or dense information. Instead, it needs to create a sense of inner safety, a place where the listener feels welcomed, permitted to slow down, and most importantly, permitted not to try. Choosing rivers as the planet's silent architects is a subtle and thoughtful decision. In common imagination, an architect is associated with intention, blueprints, calculation, and creative authority. Yet here, the river is an architect without a map, without ambition, without intention. This gentle paradox makes the image deeply soothing. Earth was not built by explosive moments, but by small, steady, persistent movements that almost no one notices. This immediately sends a quiet message to the listener's mind: you do not need to change your life overnight. You only need to exist the way water exists. Introducing the river not through force but through patience plays a crucial role in regulating the listener's nervous system. In modern life, we are used to seeing nature described through power, majestic waterfalls, destructive floods, violent waves. Before sleep, such imagery can unknowingly activate alertness rather than calm. In contrast, the patience of the river cutting through stone, not by force but by time, creates a very different sensation. Everything can be resolved without tension. The stone is not defeated. It is simply touched again and again until its shape changes. From Carl Gustav Jung's perspective, symbols like rivers do not belong only to nature. They belong to the deepest structures of the human psyche. Jung believed that the unconscious does not communicate through reasoning, but through primordial images. Images that existed long before language itself. The river thus becomes a symbol of the unconscious flow, where memories, emotions, and lived experiences move quietly even when consciousness is exhausted. When the opening presents the river as patient and silent, it is indirectly reassuring the listener your mind is working in the same way. You do not need to control it at night. Details such as nourishing forests and carrying the memory of ancient civilizations in each grain of silt expand the image of the river from a natural phenomenon into a living archive of memory. Silt is not just soil. It is time ground down traces of ancient mountains, remnants of long-past rains. When the listener absorbs this image in a relaxed state, they may begin very subtly to sense that they too carry similar layers of memory. But instead of needing to excavate or resolve them now, they are gently reminded that memory can rest just as silt rests within the riverbed undisturbed. The role of this opening to bring the listener into a state of safety, gentle curiosity, and readiness to release is achieved not through instruction, but through resonance. The text does not say relax or go to sleep. Instead, it describes a world that is already slow, already patient. When the listener stays in that world long enough, the body adjusts naturally. Breathing slows. Shoulders soften. The mind stops searching for an endpoint. Notably, the curiosity awakened here is extremely gentle. It is not the curiosity of what happens next, but rather, can I stay here a little longer? This is the ideal kind of curiosity before sleep. It keeps consciousness open without stimulation. The listener is not pulled forward but invited to drift. On a deeper level, this opening also reduces existential pressure. When we hear that Earth was shaped by silent flows, that forests are nourished by slow water, that civilizations are remembered in silt, we begin to feel that existence does not need to be loud to be meaningful. And before sleep, this is the greatest gift a script can offer, the feeling that you do not need to prove anything. Thus, part 1 is not simply an introduction. It is a transition ritual from day to night, from consciousness to unconsciousness, from control to permission. It aligns the listener with the rhythm of the river, the rhythm of long time, small movements, unhurried life. And once this ritual is complete, every part that follows has a stable foundation, not built on persuasion, but on trust. There are movements on Earth that unfold so slowly that humans rarely notice them happening. They make no loud sounds, leave no clear marks within a single lifetime, and demand no attention. Yet these very movements form the foundation of every shape we live with today. Rivers belong to this kind of movement. Before there were cities, before there were roads, before humans began to question themselves, water was already quietly finding its way. It drew no maps planned, no destination carried, no desire to conquer. It simply listened to the land, leaned toward the smallest slope, and flowed with patience. From that simple movement, mountains were worn down, valleys were formed, forests grew, and soil became fertile, not through force, but through the gentle repetition of time. By opening the story with the river, as Earth's silent architect, the script invites the listener to step out of a familiar way of thinking where value exists only in speed, strength, clarity, and efficiency. Earth was not built by that logic, and sleep, the most natural human state, works the same way. There is no button to force sleep to arrive. It comes only when we stop pushing ourselves to achieve it. The river teaches us an ancient lesson. The profound change does not require tension. Stone does not break overnight, but over thousands of years its shape becomes entirely different simply because water continues to touch it. In the slow rhythm of this opening, the listener is gently guided into the same rhythm as the river. A rhythm not measured in minutes or seconds, but in safety, the feeling that nothing is chasing you. Rivers nourish forests not through dramatic intervention, but through steady presence. Water seeps into soil, carries minerals, softens roots, and creates the conditions for life to spread. In the same way, the human mind does not heal through forceful effort at night, but by being in a space that demands nothing. This opening does not try to fix any problem the listener may have. It simply creates an inner environment calm enough for everything to adjust on its own. The image of silt carrying the memory of ancient civilizations adds another subtle layer. Silt does not choose. It carries everything the river has touched. Stone fragments from upstream ash from ancient volcanoes, traces of vanished forests, and cities that once existed and were quietly left behind. Everything dissolves, is ground down, and flows without judgment. When the listener encounters this image in a relaxed state, they may sense that their own mind carries many layers of memory as well, and that not every layer needs to be opened right now. From Jung's perspective, the unconscious is not chaos in need of control, but a living system with its own order. It functions like a river, sometimes calm, sometimes swelling, but always seeking balance. When the opening describes the river through patience and silence, it performs an important psychological task, redefining safety. Safety does not come from stillness, but from knowing there is a flow supporting you even when you do nothing. The curiosity this part awakens does not pull the listener outward, but inward toward gentle observation. There is no need to understand everything being said. Simply let the images pass by. Just as when sitting beside a real river, we do not analyze every ripple we watch, we listen, and gradually we relax. This is the ideal state before sleep awareness remains but no longer clenches. Most importantly, this opening delivers a deeply humane message: you are not falling behind. Earth took millions of years to become what it is. Rivers took thousands of years to carve their paths. In that context, allowing yourself one night to stop, to rest, to let go of thought is not weakness. It is alignment with nature. Thus, part 1 does more than introduce rivers. It opens a new psychological space, one where the listener is allowed to slow down without guilt, allowed to be curious without needing answers, allowed to relax without justification. When told in the right rhythm, the silent flow of the earth becomes the silent flow that carries the listener away from the long day and gently closer to sleep, as naturally as water returning to the sea. At the beginning, we stayed beside visible rivers, streams. We can see, hear, and touch. They pass through cities, embrace forests, reflect the sky, and offer a sense of familiarity. But just like the human mind, not every current flows on the surface. When you stand by a river and watch the water move quietly, you rarely think about what is happening beneath the ground. Few people ask, where did this water travel before it appeared here? Which layers of rock did it touch? How did it silently change the world without light, without witnesses? And in much the same way, as we prepare to enter sleep consciousness, slowly withdraws, making space for another world, the world of invisible movements. Clear thoughts fade, plans dissolve, the loud voices of daytime fall silent. What remains are quiet inner currents continuing their work even when we no longer notice them. That is where part 2 begins. Part 2, the invisible rivers, the world beneath the ground. If the rivers on the surface of the earth are images of conscious life, where everything has a name, a form, and can be observed, then underground rivers are the primordial symbols of the unconscious. They exist in complete darkness, needing no witness in order to keep flowing. And it is precisely in this absence of light that the deepest transformations take place. Water beneath the ground does not flow in the way the eye expects. It has no clear banks, no surface reflecting the sky. It slips through the smallest cracks, seeps into limestone, patiently dissolving each grain of mineral. Over thousands, tens of thousands of years, this repeated contact gives rise to vast cave systems, labyrinths, that humanity has only begun to explore in a very brief moment of its history. There is no loud sound when a cave is formed. There is no clear moment of birth. There is only the unbroken continuation of water and stone. And when we look at the surface, deep valleys, sudden sinkholes, waterfalls appearing in the forest, we begin to realize that the landscape above has long been shaped by what has been happening below. Carl Gustav Jung wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious. The unconscious is not just evil by nature, it is also the source of the highest good. These words resonate in a special way when we think of underground rivers. In darkness, without the light of consciousness, water continues its work quietly. It does not destroy in a violent sense. It restructures. It creates emptiness. And it is precisely this emptiness that allows new forms to emerge. A sinkhole is a powerful image, yet when told in a slow rhythm, it carries no threat. It is a reminder that what seems solid on the surface may exist only because we have not looked deeply enough. In psychological life, the same is true. There are moments when everything appears to collapse, a belief, a relationship, an image of oneself. But from a Jungian perspective, this is not necessarily a breakdown. It may be a sign that an unconscious process has been unfolding for a long time, and that the surface can no longer maintain its old shape. What is remarkable about underground rivers is that they have no clear goal. Water does not know it is creating caves. It does not know that one day humans will call these places wonders. It simply responds to its environment, chooses the path of least resistance, and continues to flow. This lack of intention makes the image especially suited for listening before sleep. It whispers to the listener, you do not need to understand everything that is happening within you. Jung emphasized in Psychological Types, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. But what matters here is this: making the unconscious conscious does not always happen in waking clarity. Sometimes it begins by allowing oneself to enter the darkness safely. Sleep is the natural space for this, and underground rivers with their slow and deep rhythm become ideal guiding images. Underground lakes, hidden waterfalls, streams that disappear and reappear all evoke a sense that the world has more layers than we usually see. When the listener receives these images in a relaxed state, analysis is unnecessary. What arises instead is trust. Trust that even when unseen, there is an order at work. From a biological and geological perspective, underground rivers are crucial to surface stability. But symbolically, they teach us that the hidden parts of the mind are not enemies. They are foundations. They support. They hold the entire structure in place, even though we rarely notice their presence in everyday life. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, in each of us there is another whom we do not know. Part 2 is a gentle invitation for the listener to encounter this other whom we do not know, not through analysis but through imagery. Not through questions, but through presence. The darkness of caves is not threatening darkness. It is protective darkness, a place without the harsh light of judgment, a place where water is allowed to flow in its most natural way. The emotional tone this section aims for, quiet, deep, slow, like a long breath, is intentional. It mirrors the rhythm of the nervous system as it shifts from alertness into rest. Just as underground water flows more slowly than surface water, the mind at night slows when it no longer has to react to the external world. Rivers do not only shape the surface, they restructure the world from within. Placed in a Jungian context, this becomes a profound psychological truth. The most important changes in human life rarely happen in loud moments. They happen when we are silent, when we rest, when we allow ourselves not to know. Thus, Part 2 does not draw the listener inward through tense curiosity, but through release. It does not ask the listener to confront darkness only to remain near it, just enough to feel that it is not as dangerous as once believed. And as the listener lies there in the dim light of the room, allowing images of invisible rivers to pass through the imagination, something very natural occurs. Consciousness slowly withdraws. Just as the surface of the earth does not need to understand underground rivers to be supported, humans do not need to understand the unconscious in order to sleep. It is enough to trust that beneath this silence, a current continues, quiet, patient, and safe enough to let oneself drift. There is a strange truth about the earth. Much of what supports the world we live in lies beyond our sight. Beneath quiet forests, crowded cities, and even mountains that seem immovable, there exists a network of water moving silently. No light, no sound, no warning signs. Yet it is this network that determines the long-term shape of the surface. Underground rivers do not follow the human concepts of above or below. For water, there is no moral direction, no right or wrong, only yielding. It flows where stone is softer, where pressure is lower, where space allows it to exist. And for this reason, the world beneath the ground is not a dead space, but a living one, breathing in its own rhythm. If we pause long enough in imagination, we can picture water flowing in a cave, not rushing, not stopping, not needing to be seen. Each drop falls, touches stone, leaves a mark that cannot be seen at once. But that mark does not vanish. It accumulates. It remembers. And over time, memory becomes form. In Carl Gustav Jung's depth psychology, the unconscious operates by a similar logic. It does not communicate through words, debate, or persuasion. It works through repetition, images, sensations, and dreams that come and go. And like water in caves, the unconscious does not need to be understood immediately to be meaningful. Jung wrote in The Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche, the unconscious is a process, and the psyche is a process without a clear beginning and without a fixed ending. By focusing on underground rivers, Part 2 performs a subtle task. It synchronizes the rhythm of the narrative with the rhythm of the unconscious. No conclusions. No climax, just an opening of space in which the listener can remain long enough. Caves are formed through slow dissolution. Limestone is not shattered, it is dissolved. This distinction matters symbolically. In psychological life, lasting change rarely comes from direct confrontation. It comes from softening from an old belief, gradually losing rigidity, from a fear being touched repeatedly until it is no longer as sharp. The surface changes because of emptiness below. Read slowly, this carries a quiet strangeness. It suggests that what we see is not always the cause. Sometimes the surface merely reflects movements that have been unfolding silently for a very long time. Before sleep, this has a deeply soothing effect. It allows the listener to release the need to fix everything immediately. There are nights when we lie awake wondering why emotions feel so heavy, even though nothing remarkable happened during the day. Just as the ground collapses, not because of a single drop of water, but because of thousands of years of flow. Part 2 does not explain this rationally. It simply places the listener beside an image vast enough to make the experience feel shared, not isolated. An underground waterfall is a striking image. Water, plunging in darkness, unseen yet following its own laws. In Jungian symbolism, this can be felt as powerful emotions held inside, unexpressed outwardly, yet still moving. Including this image before sleep is not meant to awaken emotion, but to normalize its existence. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Yet he also emphasized that pain does not need to be relived harshly. It can be approached indirectly through symbols, dreams, and images that feel safe. Underground rivers are such symbols. They allow the listener to touch depth without being overwhelmed. An underground lake with its still surface in darkness carries a very different feeling from an underground waterfall. It is a place where water rests, settles, reflects even without light. In the language of the psyche, these are rare inner moments when emotions are held rather than pushed away or explained, simply existing. And this non-demanding existence is exactly what sleep needs. Part 2 extends the narrative rhythm not merely to induce physical drowsiness, but to gradually remove consciousness from the center. When we listen to things that cannot be seen, controlled, or precisely named, consciousness accustomed to mastery begins to tire. And when it tires, it releases. That moment of release is the doorway to sleep. Importantly, there is no threat in this section. Darkness is not described as dangerous. Emptiness is not described as loss. Everything is told in a neutral, accepting, almost gentle voice. This aligns deeply with Jung's view that the unconscious is not something to be conquered, but something to be respected. Jung wrote in Modern Man, in search of a soul, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. In the context of sleep, awakening here does not mean alertness, but a deeper awareness, one that no longer strains to hold a role. Looking inward is not for analysis, but for recognizing that there are currents that existed before any effort of the ego. Thus, part 2 does not lead the listener toward a conclusion. It resembles a long cave passage, no highlight, no light at the end, only continuation. And this continuation calms the nervous system, for when there is no goal, the body does not need to tense. As the listener lies there, eyes closed, letting images of water flowing beneath the ground drift through the mind, they may not remember every word. And that is completely fine. Just as underground rivers do not need recognition to exist, this part of the script does not need to be remembered to work. It only needs to be heard and kept company with. And in that quiet, something natural may occur. Breathing slows. The body grows heavier. Consciousness fades. Not because it is forced into sleep, but because there is nothing left to hold on to. Just as the surface does not need to know where the underground river flows, humans do not need to know what the unconscious is doing in order to rest. After passing through the world of underground rivers, where water moves in darkness, where all motion lies beyond sight, we slowly return toward light. But this light is not the noise of modern life. It is the gentle light of an ancient dawn, when humans lived closer to the earth's breath. What happens beneath the ground is not separate from the world above. It is precisely because of these invisible currents that the surface becomes fertile, stable, and safe enough for humans to settle. And just as in the human psyche, when the unconscious quietly prepares the foundation, consciousness can build forms of life, laws, and culture. From the darkness of caves, we step onto the riverbank, and there a long human story begins. Part 3, Rivers and the Birth of Civilization. It is no coincidence that the earliest ancient civilizations flourished along rivers. Before humans measured time with clocks, before calendars were written in words, they measured life by water. Water rose, water receded, and between those two moments, life unfolded. Rivers appeared not as resources to exploit, but as long dialogues between humans and nature. Cities were not built where it was most convenient, but where water allowed them to be. Homes, temples, granaries, all turned toward the river, as if acknowledging a rhythm larger than human will. Floods were not seen as disasters in the modern sense. They were part of order. People learned to wait for them, prepare for them, and adjust life around them. When the water receded, silt remained fine, earth carrying the memory of mountains and time. Agriculture did not rely on forcing the land, but on trust in cycles. Sowing seeds was both practical and sacred, trusting that the river would return in its time. Trade by boat was not only an exchange of goods, but of stories, beliefs, and symbols. Rivers connected communities without erasing differences. They did not divide. They joined. Through slow journeys, culture spread not by command but by contact. Early human rituals were often tied to water, not because people understood the science of flow, but because they sensed its living quality. Water came and went. Seasons shifted. The moon waxed and waned. Agricultural calendars emerged not from control but from patient observation. Time in that world was not something to chase, but something to move with. From Carl Gustav Jung's perspective, these civilizational structures were not only responses to survival needs, but expressions of archetypes, primordial patterns within the collective unconscious. The river as a source of life is linked to the image of the Great Mother, the nurturer who sustains and protects without demand. Jung wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "The archetype is a tendency to form such representations of a motif, representations that can vary a great deal in detail, without losing their basic pattern." Across different lands, humans viewed rivers with similar feelings, reverence, gratitude, and gentle caution. This blend created a unique psychological state, neither arrogant nor fearful. And this is the state. This section seeks to evoke a state well suited for sleep. When river flows changed, civilizations quietly declined. Yet this decline was not told as tragedy. There was no lamentation, no condemnation, only water shifting and human life shifting with it. Cities were left behind, not due to moral failure, but because the natural rhythm had changed. In this telling, history softens. It becomes not a series of victories and defeats, but a continuous flow. This reflects Jung's view of the ego. When humans over-identify with a fixed form, suffering arises. When they see themselves as part of a larger process, suffering eases. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Life has always seemed to me like a plant that lives on its rhizome. The underground root continues to live even when the visible plant withers. So too with civilization. A city disappearing does not mean its meaning is lost. It settles like silt, becoming foundation for other forms of life." In the steady rhythm of Part 3, the listener is not pulled into loss, but invited into gentle nostalgia, not to mourn, but to recognize that everything has its time. And when that time passes, resistance is unnecessary. This is a powerful yet gentle lullaby message. You do not need to hold onto one shape of life forever. Just as civilizations adapted to rivers and then moved on, modern humans can allow themselves to change, rest, and release without feeling like failures. Here, the river is neither purely unconscious nor purely spiritual. It becomes a bridge between nature and culture, instinct and social structure. As the listener receives this image in relaxation, a realization emerges: their own life follows a similar rhythm. There is no rush in the formation of civilizations, no chaos in their dissolution. Everything unfolds slowly enough for a human life to be lived within it without needing full understanding. This is the feeling Part 3 leaves before moving onward. The feeling of belonging to a flow larger than the ego. Jung wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "Man cannot stand a meaningless life." But meaning, as he emphasized, does not always come from achievement. Sometimes it comes from sensing that one is in rhythm, that one is listening to the water flowing through one's life, even without being able to name it. Thus, Part 3 tells not a story of human greatness, but of harmony. And it is this harmony that soothes the listener's mind. For when one no longer needs to be great, one can rest. As night deepens and the voice continues to flow, images of ancient riverside cities appear and fade like memories. No need to keep them. No need to analyze. Simply let them pass, as water passes through the earth, leaving behind a warmth difficult to name. And in that feeling, sleep arrives, not as an ending, but as a continuation of the same flow, the flow that nourished the earth, nourished civilization, and now quietly nourishes you. When humans first settled, they did not seek to dominate nature, but to find a rhythm they could rely on. In a world still full of uncertainty, the river appeared as something dependable. It did not promise absolute safety, but it offered repetition. And repetition became the foundation of psychological stability. Each flood season, each retreat of water, left its mark. Without writing or maps, humans learned by memory, held in the body, when to sow, when to wait, when to harvest. The river's rhythm became an inner rhythm, shaping how time was felt. Time was no longer a straight line rushing forward, but a familiar cycle where each year echoed the last. The first cities emerged not as centers of power, but as resting points by the flow. People did not build cities to display strength, but to stay close to water, to listen and observe. Urban planning was adaptive rather than imposed. Homes faced the river. Roads followed its banks. All structures silently acknowledged a force greater than themselves. In the ancient world, humans did not see themselves as the center of order. They saw themselves as part of a shared movement. The river did not serve humans. Humans learned to live without straying from the river. This psychological stance, less control, more trust, created a mental state very different from the modern one. From Jung's view, this reflects a harmonious relationship between the ego and larger forces within the collective unconscious. When the ego does not try to stand above nature, it does not need to tense itself in defense. And when the ego is not tense, inner life becomes calmer. Agriculture based on silt was not only technique, but quiet faith. Silt cannot be seen when seeds are planted, yet it will be present when crops grow. Humans sowed in waiting, accepting that results do not arrive immediately. This waiting cultivated a vital psychological quality, the ability to tolerate incompletion. And this is precisely what sleep requires, accepting that today does not need to be fully resolved. Trade by boat carried a different spirit than land trade. It was slower, dependent on weather, water, and seasons. These journeys exchanged not only goods, but rhythms of life. Travelers brought their worldviews without erasing those they encountered. The river became a shared space where differences could coexist without collision. Culture, ritual, and seasonal calendars formed from water rhythms because humans needed collective psychological synchronization. Festivals were not only celebrations, but reminders that life unfolded in cycles. Waiting together, planting together, harvesting together created a deep sense of connection, based not on individual awareness, but on repeated shared experience across generations. Jung wrote, "In the symbolic life symbols are natural attempts to reconcile and reunite opposites within the psyche. The river here reconciles humans with time, individuals with community, will with surrender. It allows action while also yielding to a larger order. When river flows changed, civilizations quietly faded. But this fading was not failure. It resembled a long dry season, after which people moved on, carrying memory, leaving space for other forms of life. There was no psychological rupture, because ancient people understood that no form lasts forever. From a Jungian view, this is psychological maturity, not identifying the self with a fixed role. When a civilization dissolves, meaning does not collapse with it, because meaning lives in continuity, not in form. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections I Cannot Say in what consists the tremendous importance of the unconscious in our lives. Yet this importance can be felt by observing how humans lived with rivers. They did not understand everything, but they felt enough to live in harmony. And that harmony creates a mental state ideal for sleep, not overly anxious, not tightly grasping. Told in a steady nostalgic rhythm, Part 3 helps the listener feel that history is not a burden, but a gentle stream of memory. Ancient riverside cities appear not to evoke loss, but to remind us that everything had its place, and when its time passed, leaving was as natural as water receding. Before sleep, this has a deep effect. It allows the listener to release the expectation of keeping everything intact. A relationship changes. A life chapter closes. A role no longer fits. All can be seen through the eyes of the river without blame, without judgment, only acknowledgement and continuation. There is no tragedy in the way rivers witness humans come and go, and there need be no tragedy in how humans look back on themselves. This is the greatest gift Part 3 offers, the sense that change is not failure, but the natural rhythm of living. As the voice continues to flow, images of riverside fields, slow boats, seasonal festivals fade like unnamed memories. No need to hold on, no need to conclude. Simply allow them to merge into the larger current of the story. And in that merging, the listener's mind slowly steps out of modern urgency, returning to an ancient rhythm, a rhythm in which people once slept more deeply, not because life was easier, but because they did not resist its flow. Part 3 closes not with a stop, but with a feeling. The feeling of living within an order larger than oneself, where each individual is only a moment, yet that moment is complete. And in that feeling, sleep does not need to be sought. It arrives like water, returning to the riverbed quietly on time and without being summoned. After seeing humans learn to live by the river's rhythm, settling, cultivating, exchanging, and then quietly leaving when the flow changed, we realize something deeper. Humans are not the only ones nourished by rivers. Before and after all civilizations, rivers continue their silent work for no one in particular. What humans call history is only a thin slice of a much longer process, one in which water carries each grain of silt to shape land and sea. If in part 3 the river was the rhythm of community, then in part 4 the river returns to its most primal nature, a creative force, quiet, undramatic, unwitnessed, only time repetition and countless small particles together shaping the world. Part 4. Rivers as shapers of land and oceans. There is something easily overlooked when we gaze out at the sea or stand on the edge of a delta. Land is not a finished mass, placed there from the beginning, and the ocean is not an undefined void. Both are the result of prolonged movement, in which rivers play the role of the most patient carriers. Each grain of silt, so small it often goes unnoticed, is transported by water again and again until shorelines, new islands, and the soft contours of continents come into being. A delta does not appear in a single moment. It is built through meaningful delay. As water meets the sea, it slows, releasing what it has carried from the highlands. There is no rush, no force, only a yielding to gravity and time, and from that yielding land is born. On a symbolic level, this speaks gently to the mind. Stable foundations are rarely created through urgency. They form when there is enough time for small things to settle into their proper places. Hearing this before sleep, the body begins to understand that it does not need to finish everything in one night. Some things only need to be set down so that tomorrow or some other day can arrange them naturally. Rivers create new islands, not through separation but through accumulation. Each grain of silt is a small decision made without intention, and when enough of these gather, form emerges. Here, form is a consequence, not a goal. This resonates deeply with the way Jung understood psychological development. Individuation is not a leap, but a series of subtle accumulations of experience, emotion, and understanding, many of which occur outside conscious awareness. Carl Gustav Jung wrote in The Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche, "The psyche is not a thing but a process." As one listens to how land is built grain by grain, the mind may quite naturally recognize that it too is being built in this way. No perfect plan is required, no dramatic milestone, only allowing what has been lived to settle. Beyond the delta, silt continues its journey to the ocean floor. There, immense sediment fans form structures invisible to the naked eye, yet decisive in shaping the seabed. The deep ocean is not empty. It is layered, built one stratum upon another, from particles that once belonged to distant mountains, forests, and streams. In nighttime listening, this image brings a sense of groundedness without heaviness. The world does not collapse simply because we are not watching. On the contrary, it continues to be built in silence. And if the world can function this way, then the human mind, being part of nature, can allow itself to move at the same rhythm. Rivers nourish forests, wetlands, and oceans, not through forceful intervention, but through even distribution. Water carries nutrients but does not keep them. It gives, then moves on. In the language of depth psychology, this is an image of libido as a current life energy, not fixed on a single goal, but circulating, nourishing many forms of life. Jung wrote in Symbols of Transformation, "Libido is not a force that moves in a straight line, but a current that flows wherever there is a gradient." Listening to this circulation, the listener is invited out of linear thinking first. This must be finished. Then rest is allowed. First understanding, then release. The earth does not wait to be complete before continuing. It continues by continuing, and that is enough. Wetlands, often misunderstood as stagnant, are in fact vibrant ecosystems, where decay and growth occur simultaneously. This becomes a subtle metaphor for psychological in-between states, no longer fully attached to the old, not yet fully entered into the new. Part 4 does not avoid this image. It embraces it with a slow rhythm, allowing the listener to feel that being in between is not failure. Being in between is nourishment. In Modern Man in Search of a Soul, Jung wrote, "The middle path is not a compromise but a living process. Heard alongside images of wetlands and deltas, the mind can exhale. There is no need to decide immediately, no need to turn sharply. Let the grains of lived experience settle." A central emphasis of Part 4 is that land and sea are built grain by grain, not in moments. Read slowly, this has a clear regulating effect on the nervous system. It dissolves the unconscious expectation of immediacy, the expectation that keeps people awake. When that expectation fades, the body finds its natural biological rhythm again. At a deeper level, Part 4 also opens a way of seeing meaning. Meaning does not need to erupt, it can accumulate. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Life has always seemed to me like a plant that lives on its rhizome. Roots persist, stems and leaves change. Land is built, coastlines shift. Meaning too lies not in peaks but in continuation. As the voice remains steady, the listener may imagine coastlines changing so slowly that a single lifetime would never notice. In that feeling, the personal ego softens. No need to leave a mark, no need to be visible, only to remain within the process. Part 4 thus offers a distinct kind of stability, not stability through stillness, but stability through time. This is the ideal feeling before sleep, not stimulating, not sad only enough for the body to trust that it rests on safe ground. Jung wrote in The Undiscovered Self, "The individual is the carrier of life, and life itself is not something static, but something flowing." Hearing this alongside images of rivers building the ocean, the listener can allow themselves to drift, not drifting away, but drifting into sleep, as a natural continuation of the flow already described. There is a beautiful paradox in how the earth is formed. The largest structures are created by the smallest movements. There is no earth-shaking moment when a coastline is born, no sound when a new island rises. Only the quiet continuation of countless particles moving through water, finding rest and staying. The river in its long journey carries no ambition to create. It does not know that each grain of silt released contributes to a process millions of years long. Yet precisely because it has no such intention, its work endures. The solidity of the earth is built through unintentionality, a trustworthy unintentionality. In the context of sleep, this holds deep psychological value. Modern humans often grow tired from the effort of becoming, from actively constructing themselves, from controlling the course of life. Part 4 gently offers another possibility, being formed without strain, becoming through continuation, not through pressure. As silt settles at river mouths, it does not distinguish land from sea. It responds only to flow, speed, salinity, gravity. This absence of categorization softens the boundary between water and land. A coastline is not a line, but a transition zone where two worlds slowly negotiate form. In depth psychology, such transitional zones are crucial. They are places where the old has not fully vanished and the new has not yet solidified. Jung saw these as necessary states of inner transformation, states that cannot be rushed or structure will fracture. Carl Gustav Jung wrote in The Symbolic Life, "Transformation is not a sudden change, but a gradual unfolding. The image of coastlines, built slowly, is the material expression of this truth. No leap, no final point, only opening. At the ocean floor, beyond the reach of light, silt continues its journey in another way. No longer shaped by tides or wind, it falls slowly, almost vertically, forming thin layers stacked upon one another. Each layer knows nothing of the next, yet this unconscious stacking records Earth's history, a history written in matter, not words. In pre-sleep listening, this image has a special effect. It allows the listener not to remember. All experiences of the day, clear or vague, may settle like sedimentary layers. No processing required, no organizing, only letting them fall to their proper depth. Rivers nourish the ocean not through grand generosity, but through continuity. No single gift is given at once, but countless small gifts are given every day. This is a powerful lullaby image because it dissolves the persistent sense of lack, the feeling of not enough, not finished, not achieved. In Modern Man in Search of a Soul, Jung wrote, "The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it." Part 4 reminds us that meaning does not need immediate recognition. It may live in repetition, in water continuing to flow unseen, in land continuing to form unnamed. Riverside forests grow through irregular flooding. No 2 years are the same. Yet this irregularity builds resilience. Trees do not demand perfect stability. They require only a foundation that lasts long enough to adjust. This is also what the human body needs before sleep, not perfect quiet, but a sense of being supported long enough. In this expanded image, wetlands become not merely transitional, but reservoirs of life. Energy is not wasted. It is stored as potential. This is a perfect metaphor for deep sleep. Sleep is not lost time, but accumulation of vitality, of recovery. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "What is not brought to consciousness comes to us as fate, but not everything needs to be brought to consciousness now. Some things must remain in darkness like seeds in mud." Part 4, with its steady rhythm, allows the listener to trust processes occurring beyond awareness. A crucial element here is the absence of urgency. No rapid shifts, no events, no climax. This very absence allows the body to adjust to its nighttime biological rhythm. The heart rate slows, the breath deepens, consciousness loosens its grip. Land is built grain by grain when felt rather than spoken. This becomes an invisible reassurance. You do not need to complete yourself in one lifetime. You do not need to leave a visible trace. Existing, settling, continuing this already participates in the larger creative process. In The Undiscovered Self, Jung wrote, "Man's task is to become conscious of the contents that press upward from the unconscious." Yet he also emphasized that this process cannot be forced. It resembles the slow rising of land from the sea. When rushed erosion occurs, when patience is allowed, form emerges. At its deepest level, Part 4 is not about geology. It is about trust in process. The trust that something is working on your behalf, that you need not remain awake for things to be arranged. And when this trust appears, sleep is no longer sought. It arrives like the final silt of the day, quiet, steady, heavy enough for consciousness to stop drifting. Part 4 closes not with an ending image, but with a spreading feeling. The feeling of being set down upon ground built long before your arrival. And when the body senses that this ground is firm enough, it allows itself to rest. Nothing more needs to be done. Nothing more needs to be thought. Let the river continue its work. And you, like land, like ocean, are allowed to sink into sleep, not as a stopping point, but as a new layer in the sediment of life. Having rested within the sense of solidity of a world built grain by grain where land grows slowly, oceans are layered in silence, and form appears without dramatic moments, a natural question arises. What remains within these layers of earth and water after time passes? For creation is not only shaping form, creation is also remembering. And here, the river reveals an even deeper role, not only as a carrier, but as a keeper of the earth's memory. Part 5. Rivers as the archive of the earth's memory. There are memories that do not exist in words, that are never told, never consciously preserved, yet they remain. They lie in mud, in ice, in thin layers of sediment stacked over thousands, millions of years. The river, in its infinite patience, becomes the keeper of the planet's memory, not through conscious recall, but through material accumulation. Ancient atmospheres are preserved in tiny air bubbles trapped in ice and mud. Moments of air once breathed by creatures long gone still exist, motionless, unchanged. When humans drill deep, they do not find only matter. They find compressed time. And that time does not tell stories in language, but through chemistry, through microscopic structure. In nighttime listening, this image has a special effect. It whispers, every experience leaves a trace, even if you do not remember it. No need to record. No need to name. What has happened is held in its own way, like ancient air held in ice. Quiet, intact, not demanding attention. Climate traces, pollen microorganisms are the Earth's smallest script. Invisible to the naked eye, yet they tell long stories of rains, droughts, forests expanding and retreating. Rivers carry these traces, then let them settle. Without judgment, without selection. Everything has its place in the geological chronicle. Symbolically, this touches a deep psychological truth the human mind stores in a similar way. There are memories absent from conscious recall that still influence breathing, sleep, emotion. In Carl Jung's depth psychology, the unconscious is not random storage, but a living archive. Jung wrote in The Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche, the unconscious is not merely the unknown, it is also the unremembered. When Part 5 presents the river as a living chronicle, it invites the listener to stop trying to remember. No need to search memory. No need to explain feelings. For just as the earth has stored enough, the mind has stored enough, and sleep is not for rereading history, but for letting history rest. Volcanic ash glacial traces, ancient islands and lakes preserved in river sediment, show that even the most violent events can become quiet layers over time. Volcanoes once erupted, glaciers once crushed landscapes, yet all eventually settled into fine grains. Told in a slow, low rhythm, this offers deep comfort. Intensity does not determine lasting weight. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, I had to find out what unconscious or preconscious facts were forming me. But he also showed that such finding out does not happen through tension. It happens in dreams, in silence, in moments when consciousness relinquishes control. Part 5 creates precisely this space, a space where memory is allowed to rest rather than be pulled up. The river becomes a living chronicle because it does not erase. It carries, but does not lose. It settles, but does not freeze. This chronicle has no clear beginning or end. It is layers upon layers, each holding part of a story, no matter how small. In the lullaby context, this is a gentle message. You do not need to remember your entire life story to rest. Your body remembers. Your nervous system remembers. And like the river, they know how to store without supervision. Jung wrote in The Symbolic Life, the psyche creates reality every day, yet not every night requires renewal. Some nights, reality needs to settle. Part 5 does not awaken memory. It softens it by placing it within a timescale far larger than a single life. A key quality of this section is the absence of demand. No call to understand, confront, or heal. Only the presence of layered memory existing without being touched. This is the deep, meditative state toward which this part moves awareness without interference. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, the unconscious can make a fool of you in no time. But he also showed that when we stop controlling the unconscious, it becomes a source of balance. Just as rivers hold Earth's memory without interrupting flow, the mind can hold memory without disturbing sleep. As the voice lowers, the listener may imagine fine mud layers at the riverbed, pollen resting beside volcanic ash, traces of cold beside traces of warmth coexisting without conflict. This image offers a rare feeling everything has its place. And when everything has a place, consciousness no longer needs to stand guard. Part 5 ends not with revelation but with settling. Nothing is understood. There is only a quiet acknowledgement that the earth has been remembering for us for a very long time, and the mind, like the river, knows what to keep and what to release. In this settling, sleep arrives not as emptiness, but as a new sediment layer, where today is gently placed beside all other days, and you may sink into it safely, carrying nothing with you. There are memories that do not need to be recalled to exist. They do not seek consciousness, do not knock, do not ask to be named. They simply rest, like thin mud layers beneath the riverbed, stacking season after season. The river does not remember as humans do, but it does not forget. In these sediment layers, time does not flow linearly. It stacks. Pollen from an ancient forest may lie beside ash from a volcanic eruption, then beneath traces of an ice age. No hierarchy between great and small events. Everything is held with the same calmness. This calmness makes the river a memory without emotion, unwarped by pain or pride. Listening to this image at night, the mind senses another possibility, storing without burden. Not every memory needs retelling. Not every experience needs immediate processing. Some things only need to be set down like land set down by water to rest within a larger order. Ancient ice holds air from hundreds of thousands of years ago. In tiny bubbles, there is the breath of another Earth, colder, quieter, less marked by humans. These bubbles exist not to tell dramatic stories, but to confirm that every era was once the present, and then it passed. Psychologically, this is a soft whisper. What you are living now will also settle into the past. No need to hurry it. Time knows how to do its work. Jung wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, the unconscious has a memory longer than that of consciousness. Placed beside images of rivers holding ancient air and microscopic traces, this opens a deep parallel. The human unconscious, like the river, remembers more than we think, not only major events, but unnoticed moments, fleeting sensations, vague fears, unnamed peace. Expanded this way, Part 5 does not evoke personal memory. It calms the relationship to memory. Memory no longer needs excavation or repair. It already has its place within a deeper structure. And when memory has its place, consciousness may rest. Ancient lakes that once existed and vanished leave traces in river sediment. No surface, no shores remain, yet the marks persist. This reflects a subtle truth of inner life. Some emotions are no longer present, yet still shape who we are. They need not return to remind us. Their quiet presence is enough. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, what we do not make conscious appears in our lives as fate. But making conscious does not always mean remembering details. Sometimes it means accepting that deeper layers exist and that they do not need intervention now. Part 5 creates this space, a space where depths are allowed to remain undisturbed. As a living chronicle, the river makes no distinction between good and bad memory. Volcanic ash rests beside pollen, traces of destruction beside traces of growth. No contradiction exists. The earth takes no sides. It holds everything, then continues. This is a powerful yet gentle lullaby lesson. You do not need to curate yourself at night. No need to discard negative thoughts or keep positive ones. Simply let everything be set down as the river sets down what it carries. Jung wrote in The Symbolic Life, a symbol does not conceal, it reveals. The symbol of the river, as memory does not hide the past. It reveals that the past can exist without disturbance. When received in relaxation, this symbol need not be understood intellectually. The body understands first. The nervous system senses there is no threat in releasing vigilance. One subtle quality of Part 5 is the sense of vast time, not scheduled time, but geological time. Time that does not hurry. When the mind is placed within this frame, personal anxieties shrink naturally, not by denial, but by proportion. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, time is a relative concept. It depends upon the psychological state of the observer. Part 5 shifts that state. It moves the listener from this must be finished now into everything has been and is being held. And in this state, sleep becomes reflex, not pursuit. As the voice remains slow and even images of sediment layers fade, not because they vanish, but because they no longer need attention. And this is the final moment before sleep, when consciousness stops searching, monitoring, questioning. Part 5 closes not with certainty but with quiet trust. The earth has remembered enough, and so has the human mind. You do not need to remember anything else tonight. Today, like a small grain, may be set down into the river of time. When that grain touches bottom, there is no sound, only stillness. And in that stillness, sleep arrives not as emptiness, but as a new layer of memory, unnamed, formless, simply allowed to be. Part 6. Rivers and the Evolution of Life. After passing through the deep memory of the earth, where rivers preserve traces of ancient atmospheres, glaciers, and time itself, the story naturally unfolds in another direction. Life. RCI. Not life as something explosive or extraordinary, but as a quiet sequence of adaptations in which each living being learns how to exist by listening to the current it lives alongside. Rivers do not create life in its original biological sense, but they shape how life continues. Fish learn to swim against the current. Birds learn to use the air currents formed above the water's surface. Land animals learn when to approach and when to leave the riverbanks with the seasons. No species conquers the flow. They simply learn to move with it, and within that movement, evolution takes place. Seen through the rhythm of a river, evolution is not a race to become stronger, but a process of becoming more fitting. Fitting to the speed of the water, fitting to temperature, fitting to seasonal cycles, and for this reason, evolution carries a gentle quality, unhurried, non-judgmental, without a final destination. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, this is precisely how the unconscious operates within the human psyche. Jung did not view psychological development as rising above nature, but as a deeper integration with the natural laws within us. He wrote in The Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche, "The psyche is a self-regulating system. Like river ecosystems, the human mind regulates itself through experience, dreams, and very small changes that consciousness does not always notice. Rapids where the flow suddenly changes become invisible boundaries that separate species. One population of fish is held below, another adapts above. Over time, differences accumulate and new life forms emerge. There is no decision, no intention, only circumstance and time." When told in a slow rhythm, this image offers an important feeling to the listener. Before sleep, difference is not deviation. It is simply the result of different currents. In inner life, differences in emotion, reaction, or ways of living can be seen in the same light without judgment, without comparison. Jung wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "The individual path never runs parallel to the collective norm." Yet this difference does not separate a person from the shared stream of life. Like river species, each individual still belongs to a larger ecosystem, where every difference has its place. Rivers also act as ecological corridors across climates. From cold regions to warm ones, from highlands to plains, rivers connect different worlds. Seeds drift with the water. Insects move along the banks. Birds follow the river in search of food and shelter. Because of this, life is not isolated. It remains continuously connected. On a symbolic level, this reflects a deep psychological truth. The human mind does not function as separate fragments. Childhood memories, present emotions, and vague images of the future are all connected by inner rivers. When these flows remain open, a sense of wholeness arises. When they are blocked, a feeling of fragmentation appears. Jung wrote in The Symbolic Life, "Only what is really oneself has the power to heal." And oneself here is not an ideal image, but the totality of all inner currents. By speaking of biological connections along rivers, Part 6 gently whispers that wholeness does not come from eliminating differences, but from allowing them to coexist. Food chains extending beyond riverbanks show that the river's influence does not stop where we can see it. Nutrients from rivers feed plankton. Plankton feeds small fish. Small fish feed birds and mammals. A very small change upstream can affect life hundreds of kilometers away. No action is ever truly isolated. In the context of sleep, this becomes a deeply comforting message: you do not exist alone. Even when you feel small, tired, or unimportant, Your presence is still part of a larger chain of connection. This sense of belonging helps the nervous system relax. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Man feels himself to be a unique individual, but he is also the representative of mankind." Part 6 nurtures this feeling not through theory, but through living images of biology and evolution. Humans are not placed above nature, they are placed within it. A key emotion in this section is humility. When we witness life adapting over millions of years, the personal ego naturally softens. There is no longer a need to rush to prove oneself, no pressure to become something in a short time. Life has always evolved over vast spans of time, and it continues to do so regardless of human impatience. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "Nature is not matter only, she is also spirit." When the river is portrayed as a force shaping life, it is no longer merely an object of study, but an expression of living spirit, one that adjusts, connects, and waits. Received before sleep, this spirit gently dissolves much unconscious tension. Part 6 does not offer a moral lesson. It does not ask the listener to change their way of living. It simply invites them to see themselves as part of a long evolutionary stream, where present difficulties are only a very small moment in a much larger story. As the voice continues evenly and warmly, images of fish swimming, birds flying, riverside forests, and extended food chains gradually blend together, losing clear boundaries. And in this blending, the listener's mind also stops dividing right and wrong, success and failure, enough and not enough. Part 6 ends with a very gentle feeling. Peace is not stillness, but the knowledge of being within an ordered flow. When this feeling arises, the body no longer needs to guard the future or repair the past. It allows itself to rest, and in that moment, sleep does not arrive as a break from life, but as part of evolution itself, where body and mind continue to adapt, restore, and connect even after consciousness has let go. If we look long enough at a river, we realize that no creature living beside it is ever fully separate from its rhythm. Even beings that seem motionless, moss on rocks, trees along the banks, are listening to the water in their own way. Life does not speak to the river with language, but with form, the shape of fins, roots, wings, and growth cycles. Evolution here is not a constant replacement of the old with the new. It is a subtle adjustment where each generation shifts only slightly from the one before. A little more resistant to water, a little stronger in swimming, a little more capable of waiting. And these little changes accumulated over long spans of time create the diversity of life. Notably, the river does not distribute life evenly. It creates conditions, and each organism responds according to its own capacity. Some thrive, some gradually disappear. There is no punishment or favoritism, only suitability or the loss of it. Seen through this rhythm, evolution becomes non-judgmental. In Jung's depth psychology, this mirrors how the unconscious functions. Jung did not see the psyche as a system that must be right, but as a system seeking balance. He wrote in The Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche, "The psyche is a self-regulating system that maintains itself in equilibrium. Like river ecosystems, the mind adjusts itself through very small feedbacks, a dream, a vague feeling, a subtle shift in reaction. No forceful intervention is needed, no coercion, only time and permission. Rapids that divide species also create distinct rhythms. Species in fast water develop endurance. Species in still water develop sensitivity. Neither is lacking. They are simply responding to different conditions." This becomes a quiet yet profound metaphor for human differences. Heard before sleep, this allows the listener to soften. You do not need to resemble anyone else to live rightly. Like river creatures, each person carries a unique rhythm shaped by the currents they have passed through. Jung wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases." Part 6, through biological evolution, whispers this truth in the language of nature without argument. And in that recognition, the mind stops comparing. stretching, stops straining, stops trying to catch up. Ecological corridors along rivers allow not only movement of life, but movement of memory. One species carries habits from cold regions into warmer ones. Another brings feeding strategies from upstream to downstream. Life does not start over each time conditions change. It continues itself by transforming just enough. Psychologically, this mirrors how humans carry parts of the past into the present, not to be bound by them, but to provide ground for adaptation. What has been learned does not vanish. It changes form, and when placed within a long flow, the past ceases to feel like a burden. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "We are not of today or yesterday, we are of an immense age." Part 6 allows the listener to feel this truth through rhythm rather than thought. As the individual is placed within a long evolutionary stream, the ego becomes smaller. And when the ego softens, sleep comes more easily. Food chains extending beyond riverbanks show there is no clear boundary between inside and outside. Nutrients from water become energy in fish. Fish become food for birds. Birds carry nutrients onto land. The cycle continues. Life does not hoard energy. It circulates it. In Jungian psychology, this is the image of libido as life energy never fixed to a single object. When energy becomes blocked, tension arises. When it is allowed to flow, balance returns. Through biological imagery, Part 6 guides the listener back to a sense of natural circulation. Jung wrote in Symbols of Transformation, energy never disappears. It changes its form. Heard within the context of riverside evolution, this releases an unconscious fear that rest is waste. It is not. Rest is simply another form of movement. Sleep does not end life. It allows life to reorganize. A crucial aspect of this extended section is biological humility. Seeing life adapt over millions of years removes the need to place oneself at the center, not to diminish oneself, but to become lighter. There is no need to complete life within a short span. Jung wrote in The Undiscovered Self, "The individual is obliged by the collective demands to conform, but he must also fulfill his own destiny." Rivers do not enforce sameness in evolution. They create conditions for diversity, and that diversity sustains ecosystems. Likewise, psychological health does not come from forcing oneself into a single mold, but from allowing one's own rhythm to develop within a shared flow. Part 6, expanded in this way, becomes a deep lullaby. You do not need to hurry. Life has never hurried. It simply continues. As the voice softens, images of riverside life blend together, no longer separate species, only life in motion. And in that moment, the listener may feel less like a tense individual and more like part of a vast, ancient, gentle process. Part 6 closes not with a conclusion, but with a spreading sensation connection without effort. When this sensation appears, the nervous system has no reason to stay alert. Consciousness loosens. The body grows heavy. Sleep arrives not as an interruption of evolution, but as a necessary pause within it, where life continues adapting, even when we are no longer awake to watch. Part 7. Rivers and humans, boundaries, conflict, and prey. Cooperation. When humans appear along riverbanks, something very natural happens. The flow is given names. From that moment on, the river is no longer just water moving through land. It becomes a boundary, a source of life, a threat, and a partner. But what matters most is this: the river has never changed how it flows. Only the way humans perceive and respond to that flow has continued to change. Boundaries are drawn along rivers because rivers appear clear, continuous, and easy to recognize. Yet rivers never stand still. They meander, erode, deposit, and change course. When water shifts direction, old boundaries become blurred. And within that blur, conflict arises not because the river causes trouble, but because humans try to fix what is inherently fluid. At a deeper level, this becomes a familiar psychological image. Humans often try to draw firm boundaries around emotions, roles, and identities. But inner life, like a river, is always shifting. When inner boundaries no longer align with the actual flow, tension appears. Part 7 does not judge right or wrong. It simply places two movements side by side, the movement of water and the movement of people. Carl Gustav Jung wrote in The Relations Between the Ego and the Unconscious, "The ego is not master in its own house." This resonates strongly when thinking of humans beside rivers. The ego wants control, stability, and preservation of familiar forms, but nature and the unconscious operate by different laws. When these rhythms meet, conflict is not abnormal. It is simply a sign that a dialogue is taking place. Disputes over riverside land often arise from uneven erosion and deposition. Land appears on one bank and disappears on the other. No one creates this change. It follows the logic of water. But when land is tied to ownership, security, and ancestral memory, natural movement becomes a source of tension. Notably, the river does not resist. It keeps flowing. Part 7 avoids a tragic tone because tragedy often comes from identifying too closely with outcomes. Here, the narrative maintains distance, allowing observation without immersion. Humans are seen redirecting rivers, building levees, digging canals, acts that reveal both intelligence and a deep fear, the fear of losing control. Humans redirect rivers not only for agriculture or transport. Beneath this lies an ancient psychological desire to make the world predictable. When water flows through defined channels, people feel safer. Yet the cost of that safety may be tension accumulating elsewhere, where flow is forced against its natural tendency. In Jungian psychology, this mirrors the relationship between consciousness and the unconscious. Consciousness resembles levee systems, directing psychic energy along acceptable paths. The unconscious resembles water. When blocked too long, it finds another route. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "The unconscious is continually at work, but we do not notice it." By speaking of canals and redirection, Part 7 tells two parallel stories, one of society, one of the mind. There is no judgment here. Building levees is not wrong, just as emotional control is not negative. The issue lies not in action, but in degree and listening. Cities growing alongside water memory offer a powerful image. Even when rivers are redirected, water leaves traces in urban layouts, street names, legends, and seasonal anxiety. Water's memory does not disappear when covered. It sleeps. This reflects how personal memory functions. Some experiences seem resolved, buried under work roles and habits, yet they remain like underground rivers beneath cities. They do not disturb, but they do not vanish. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent." Unlived memory, like redirected water, does not stop. It takes another path. Part 7 does not ask the listener to excavate memory. It simply acknowledges that memory has its own history, just as cities have water histories. A subtle strength of this section lies in how it views cooperation. Humans do not only conflict with rivers, they also learn to cooperate. Levees are built not only to fight floods, but to live with them. Canals connect, rather than merely control. Where humans observe long enough, they learn that total force is impossible, only soft adjustment works. In Jungian psychology, this marks ego maturity, no longer dominating the unconscious, but dialoguing with it. Jung wrote, "In the undiscovered self-man cannot exist without society, and society cannot exist without individuals." This relationship between individual and collective mirrors that between humans and rivers, inseparable, not identical, living together within manageable tension. Part 7 keeps a neutral tone because judgment accelerates the heartbeat. Neutrality slows it. Observing conflict without choosing sides allows the nervous system to rest. This is a deliberate choice for sleep-oriented listening. Rivers do not stand still. Humans do not stand still either. But movement does not need to become war. This is the gentle underlying message. No solution is required. no conclusion is forced. Simply the recognition that dialogue has been ongoing for a very long time. Jung wrote in The Symbolic Life, conflicts create consciousness, but consciousness does not always need to be awakened through pain. It can also be nurtured through quiet observation. Part 7 chooses this latter path. As the voice continues steadily, images of levees, canals, and riverside cities fade not as problems to solve, but as inner landscapes. Within them, the listener may recognize their own rivers, places once tightly controlled places, compromised places where listening was learned. Part 7 does not end in perfect reconciliation. It ends in coexistence. Humans remain. Rivers continue to flow. And between them lies a space wide enough to breathe. Within that space, sleep does not arrive as an escape from conflict, but as a necessary pause in a long dialogue. When pausing is allowed, the body relaxes, consciousness steps back, and the flow, both outer and inner, continues without supervision. There is a subtle similarity between rivers and humans. Neither is ever exactly the same as yesterday. Rivers change by bending through time. Humans change by adapting to circumstance, memory, and what no longer remains the same. When these two processes meet, their relationship becomes an endless dialogue, sometimes harmonious, sometimes tense, rarely broken. Boundaries drawn by humans arise from a need for stability, but rivers do not share this concept. They respond only to rain, terrain, and gravity. Each attempt to fix a river as a boundary places humans face to face with uncertainty, not because the river resists, but because it does not know how to stand still for anyone. Psychologically, this is familiar. Humans attempt to define themselves clearly, who they are, where they belong, how they should feel. But inner life rarely respects these definitions. Emotions overflow, memories return, desires shift, and like rivers, the psyche does not ask permission before changing. Carl Gustav Jung wrote in 2 essays on analytical psychology, "The psyche is far from being a homogeneous unity. On the contrary, it is a boiling cauldron of conflicting impulses." Part 7 does not soften conflict by denying it. Instead, it normalizes conflict as a natural state of coexistence. Rivers are not wrong to change course. Humans are not wrong to protect land, memory, or safety. Levees and canals demonstrate human intelligence and organization, but also a deeper need to converse with uncertainty. Redirecting water is not only about terrain. It is an experiment in living with larger forces in the least harmful way. In Jungian psychology, this mirrors individuation. The ego cannot surrender all control, nor can it dominate the unconscious. Maturity lies in flexible relationship. Jung wrote in The Relations Between the Ego and the Unconscious, the ego must take the risk of entering into a living relationship with the unconscious. River redirection thus becomes a symbol of the human effort to live with greater forces through both intervention and listening. Cities beside rivers preserve collective memory. Even when rivers shift, their memory remains in curved streets, sunken plazas, flood-prone districts. Cities become maps of negotiation between humans and water. In inner life, memory shapes personality similarly. Some experiences appear processed, covered by routine and social roles, yet their traces remain in reflexes, attractions, and avoidances. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The unconscious has a way of asserting itself, regardless of the intentions of the conscious mind." Part 7 does not urge excavation of these memories. It acknowledges their presence just as cities acknowledge being built on former rivers. This acknowledgement itself is freeing. A key element here is quiet cooperation. In many places, humans no longer seek to defeat rivers, but to live alongside them, accepting flood zones, adjusting seasons, designing flexible architecture. This is not surrender, but mature understanding. Psychologically, this parallels acceptance of unchangeable inner aspects. Jung wrote in, "The undiscovered self-freedom is the ability to accept necessity." Heard beside images of human-river coexistence, this brings a gentle relief. Not everything must be fixed. Not every conflict requires immediate resolution. Some things only need correct placement. Part 7 maintains neutrality to allow observation without entanglement. The listener need not side with river or human. Both are engaged in a long relationship where right and wrong are secondary to continued dialogue. Jung wrote in The Symbolic Life, meaning makes many things endurable, perhaps everything. Here, meaning arises not from victory but from understanding that conflict and cooperation interweave like wet and dry seasons. This interweaving keeps relationships alive. As the voice continues evenly, humans and rivers no longer oppose one another. They appear as parallel flows, sometimes touching, sometimes separating, always influencing each other. Within this image, the listener may recognize their own relationships with work, family, or inner forces, once tightly controlled, later negotiated. Part 7 closes not with perfect harmony, but with acceptance of what is. Humans continue building levees. Rivers continue flowing. Between them lies space to learn, air, and adjust. Within that space, sleep can arrive as a natural pause in an ongoing dialogue, not to escape conflict, but to allow both sides time to continue their work in silence. And when silence grows deep enough, the body releases. Consciousness stops analyzing. The river outside and the river within flow together without supervision. Tonight, that is enough. Part 8. Rare and Poetic Phenomena. After moving through the long dialogues between humans and rivers, boundaries, conflicts, compromises, the mind naturally begins to drift toward another realm, the realm of feeling. Here, reason steps back, not because it is wrong, but because it is no longer necessary. The world is no longer told through rules or functions, but through light, sound, movement, and presence. Part 8 opens precisely this realm, the realm of rare and poetic phenomena, where the river is no longer just geography, but the language of dreams. The images chosen in this section are not meant to shock or provoke restless curiosity. They are placed beside one another, like thin layers of fabric, transparent enough for light to pass through, gentle enough to slow the mind. Glowing rivers, warm rivers, natural stone bridges, drifting trees, standing upright, star mirrors at night, sounds of water and stone. Each image is an invitation, not a challenge. A glowing river does not need to be explained first. Bioluminescent light shimmering in the dark, created by microorganisms, by natural reactions when told in a slow rhythm, ceases to be a scientific phenomenon and becomes a sign of life whispering. Water in darkness illuminates itself. This evokes a deep sensation. Some things know how to shine on their own without being illuminated. In depth psychology, this is the image of inner light appearing when consciousness releases control. Carl Gustav Jung wrote in The Symbolic Life, "The symbol does not define or explain. It points beyond itself. A glowing river, therefore, does not need to be fully understood. It only needs to be seen, and in that seeing, the mind is allowed not to grasp, not to analyze, but simply to be present." Warm rivers bring the listener into another sensation: heat. Warm water within a cool landscape, gentle steam rising, space becoming softened. The warmth here is not extreme. It is enveloping. When hearing of warm rivers at night, the body responds. Subtly, shoulders loosen, breathing deepens. This is a language sleep understands very well, the language of primordial safety. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, warmth is the vital condition for all psychic growth. In Part 8, warm rivers become a symbol of non-intrusive life energy, energy that does not push, only supports. They tell the listener that warmth does not always need to be created through effort. Sometimes it is already there, waiting to be noticed. Natural stone bridges appear as images of connection, not built by human hands. Stone and water over time form a passage strong enough to cross. No blueprint, no engineering, only long cooperation. In Jungian psychology, this is the symbol of a bridge between consciousness and the unconscious. Not one constructed in therapy, but one that forms when both shores allow each other to exist. Jung wrote in 2 essays on analytical psychology. The meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. Natural stone bridges remind us that some meetings do not require planning. They form when conditions are sufficient and remain long enough to become trustworthy. Drifting trees standing upright, an image strange yet calm. The trunk follows the water while the roots keep orientation. There is neither resistance nor surrender here, only dynamic balance. For the listener before sleep, this image offers something precious, the sense that one can drift and still remain oneself. There is no need to freeze in order to be safe, nor to dissolve in order to be free. In Modern Man, In Search of a Soul, Jung wrote, "The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct. The upright drifting tree is nature's play instinct, playing with force, direction, and center of gravity to arrive at a posture that is both flexible and stable." Star mirrors at night are among the most powerful, sleep-inducing images of Part 8. A still water surfaced the sky, bending down, stars appearing both above and below. Boundaries dissolve. Above and below no longer matter. For a tired mind, this is a moment of merging where the ego stops distinguishing, measuring, comparing. Jung noted in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "In sleep we are closest to our own ground. The star mirror does not merely reflect the sky, it reflects the water's readiness to be still. And when the water is still, the sky appears." This is a perfect metaphor for sleep. When the mind settles, deeper layers reveal themselves without invitation. The sounds of water and stone close this sequence through hearing the least intrusive sense before sleep. Trickling gentle contact, echoes in caverns, no message, only rhythm. This rhythm requires no response. It allows the nervous system to synchronize without having to decide anything. In The Undiscovered Self, Jung wrote, "Silence is a reservoir of meaning. The sounds of water and stone, told in an even voice, become a kind of rhythmic silence, enough to cover the noise of the day, enough to open the door to night." The most subtle strength of Part 8 lies in its refusal of sensationalism. Any phenomenon can overwhelm if told too quickly. Here, they are placed within a long breath, allowing the listener to stay with the image instead of being pulled along. This aligns deeply with Jung's view of symbols. Symbols do not work through shock, but through gentle repetition in the unconscious. Jung wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective, "Unconscious archetypes are living psychic forms. The poetic river phenomena, light, warmth, bridges, reflections, sound, are precisely these living forms. They do not demand explanation. They act, and they act best when consciousness lets go." Part 8, therefore, does not aim to teach anything new. It adjusts state, from waking to dreaming, from analysis to sensation, from effort to presence. When the listener enters this realm, the body understands that no tasks remain. And within this dreamlike space, sleep arrives as a natural continuation of beauty. No conclusion needed, no message required. Only shimmering water, gentle warmth, the rhythm of stone touching water, and a quiet permission to drift. Part 8 closes not with a period, but with a luminous pause. A pause where images slowly dissolve, but the feeling remains. And that feeling, slow, beautiful, safe, is the final thing the mind needs before sinking into deep sleep. Part 9. Rivers, as the breathing veins of climate after, wandering through the dreamlike realm of rare phenomena. Soft light on water, subtle warmth, reflections without explanation. The mind naturally widens its view. No longer seeing the river as a separate scene, we begin to sense the larger rhythm in which it participates. Part 9 guides the listener away from fragile beauty and into a more encompassing, reassuring sensation. The sense that the earth is breathing and rivers are part of that breath. Breathing is not loud. It is steady, repetitive, nearly invisible. We notice breath only when it is interrupted. In the same way, rivers, do not display their climatic role. They connect forests to rain, oceans to floods, land to atmosphere. And through this persistent connection, climate is regulated. There is no command center, no guiding hand, only self-organizing cycles operating long enough to become trustworthy. Forest, rain, atmosphere form a breathing circle. Trees release moisture. Vapor condenses into clouds. Rain returns to land. Rivers gather rain and carry water onward. Here, rivers do not serve forests, nor do forests depend on rivers. They breathe together. When forests are healthy, rivers stabilize. When rivers stabilize, rainfall becomes rhythmic. Rhythmic does not mean perfectly even. It means familiar enough for life to feel safe. In Carl Gustav Jung's depth psychology, this sense of safety corresponds to a state in which the ego no longer needs to remain tense and vigilant. Jung viewed the psyche as a self-regulating system, where parts relate through gentle feedback. He wrote in The Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche. The psyche is a self-regulating system that maintains itself in equilibrium. Hearing about rivers as climatic breath places the listener within a similar self-regulating frame. No directing required, no forcing. Everything functions because it has learned to function together. Ocean, floods, global cycles open another breathing rhythm, the long breath. Rainwater does not disappear after touching land. It travels through rivers to the sea, joins ocean currents, then returns to the atmosphere. Floods are not merely surges, they are phases of a cycle. When viewed slowly, floods do not signify threat. They signify distribution of water, nutrients, energy. The emotion Part 9 cultivates is not absolute stillness, but trust in cycles. This trust calms the nervous system, allowing the mind to accept that not every fluctuation is a crisis. Some fluctuations are deep breaths of a larger system. Rivers store carbon quietly. Sediments retain organic matter. Wetlands accumulate biomass. Floodplain forests slow flow and keep carbon in soil. This is a form of climatic biological memory, not memory to recall, but memory to balance. Rivers do not store out of fear. They store because stability requires it. In Jungian language, this mirrors the unconscious as a reservoir of balance, where energies need not be expressed to have a place. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "The unconscious is continually at work, but we do not notice it." Hearing about carbon storage in a meditative rhythm invites the listener to trust processes working on their behalf. Not everything must be released in one night. Some things need to settle to cool tomorrow's climate and tomorrow's mind. Temperature regulation works through dispersion. Water absorbs heat, transports it, releases it slowly. Rivers, through their length and surface, become thermal buffers. No single action determines temperature. It is the result of millions of small exchanges. Safety arises from this no sudden shock when systems move in rhythm. In Modern Man in Search of a Soul, Jung wrote, "We cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning." Part 9 reminds us that evening, like life's later phases, requires a different program regulation, not acceleration. Hearing of rivers as thermal buffers, the body understands that night is a time to cool. Flow becomes part of planetary respiration, a fitting image for sleep listening. Earth's breath does not rush. It does not seek goals. It repeats, and repetition creates safety. As the listener's breathing synchronizes with the narration's slow, even enveloping alignment occurs. The nervous system enters rest mode. Jung wrote in The Undiscovered Self, "Man's consciousness was created as an island, but the unconscious is a sea." Part 9 returns the listener to that sea, not to dissolve, but to be held. Rivers, as breathing veins, become gentle pathways from island to ocean, from ego to wholeness. A subtle strength of this section is its lack of call to action. No instructions for climate behavior, no warnings, no drama. Safety emerges through trust in process. And this trust has clear physiological value. Before sleep, heart rate slows, muscles soften, thoughts thin. Jung wrote in, "The symbolic life meaning makes many things endurable, perhaps everything." Here, meaning is not a goal, but connection. When the listener senses belonging to a larger breathing system, personal worries shrink, not because they are dismissed, but because they are no longer alone. Part 9 closes with an encompassing sensation. Forests breathe rivers, breathe oceans, breathe the atmosphere breathes. No counting required, no guidance needed. Breath finds its own rhythm. In that space, sleep arrives not as retreat, but as an exhalation, long, deep, safe enough to let go. As the narration continues evenly, no climax, no emphasis, only a cooling sensation spreads like riverside shade at day's end. The mind understands it is time to rest. The flow continues. Respiration continues. And you, as a small yet inseparable part of this cycle, are allowed to sink into sleep without holding the world in your hands. Some movements are so essential they become invisible. We do not see Earth's breath, just as we rarely notice our own until it changes. Rivers belong to such movements. They do not roar, signal, or demand attention. Yet in their quietness, they participate in a vast process regulating life through breath. Rivers carry water not to take it away, but to distribute it, distributing moisture, heat, energy. When water spreads slowly across plains, soaks into soil, evaporates, and returns as rain, the entire cycle resembles a long, deep breath lasting months, years. No one commands that breath. It occurs because components have learned to coexist. In inner life, safety arises from similar familiar cycles. When the mind is not forced to react constantly, it enters what Jung called self-regulation, not control but resonance among psychic parts. Carl Gustav Jung wrote in The Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche, "Every psychic process is an energy process. Rivers, as climatic breath, are dispersed energy flows. They do not allow heat, water, or carbon to accumulate excessively. This dispersion creates long-term stability, not rigid, but soft. Forests do not breathe for themselves alone. Vapor rising from leaves alters atmospheric pressure, drawing rain. Rivers gather rain, carry it to the sea. The sea stores heat, redistributes it through currents. The entire process has no central authority. Only repeated relations lasting long enough to become rhythm. Heard at night, this allows the human mind to release an unconscious burden, the burden of being the controller. Part 9 whispers that not all systems collapse without supervision. Some function best when trusted. Jung wrote in The Undiscovered Self, "The individual cannot exist alone, but only as a part of a whole." Seeing rivers as breath lets the listener feel part of a stable whole. This has a clear physiological effect: reduced vigilance, reduced urge to stay awake. Carbon storage is not just ecological. It is a subtle psychological image. Sediment, wetlands, river mud, all hold matter in a quiet state. This is not repression. It is holding space. Holding so, systems do not overheat. Holding so, breath remains slow. In Jungian psychology, the unconscious works similarly. Not every impulse needs expression. Some energies must rest for the whole structure to remain balanced. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "The unconscious is not merely passive, it is an active factor." Activity here does not always mean outward expression. Sometimes the most important activity is slowing down. Part 9 inches, speaking of carbon storage and thermal regulation, gently teaches the mind you do not need to release everything right now. River temperature regulation does not occur through sudden cooling, but through delay. Water absorbs heat by day, releases it at night. Flow stretches change over time. This slowness is the foundation of safety change, slow enough for the body to adapt. As the narration emphasizes delay, the listener's nervous system synchronizes. Heart rate drops, breathing lengthens. Consciousness softens, not from fatigue, but from lack of need to strain. Jung wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "Hurry is not of the devil, it is the devil." Part 9. By placing the listener in planetary breathing directly opposes haste. It does not command stopping. It makes stopping natural. A vital element of this extended section is the sense of being held. When rivers are seen as breath, they are no longer outside us. They become part of an environment embracing life. This sense of containment is the biological foundation of deep sleep. Infants sleep well when held. Adults do too, only differently. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Jung wrote, "In deepest sleep, we return to a state of primal trust." Part 9 is a pathway back to that primal trust, not through affirmation, but through rhythm. Forest rhythm, river rhythm, atmospheric rhythm. Rhythm does not need understanding to work. Flow as breath no longer has direction, only cycle. And cycles are what bodies love because cycles allow predictability without control. Day and night. Inhale and exhale. Rise and fall. When the mind senses cycle, it steps out of observation. Jung wrote, "In the symbolic life, the symbol is a transformer of energy. The symbol of rivers as breath does not convey information. It transforms state, from tension to softness, from focus to diffusion, from waking to dreaming." Part 9 inches, this expanded form does not aim to add knowledge. It deepens safety. When safety is deep enough, sleep does not need invitation. It arrives naturally like a long exhale after a day of movement. As the narration continues evenly, no climax, no conclusion, the listener gradually stops following each sentence. And that is precisely when this part completes its task. Not by being fully understood, but by no longer needing to be. The river continues flowing. The forest continues breathing. The atmosphere continues moving. And you, small yet inseparable from this breathing system, are allowed to exhale and sink into sleep within the wordless embrace of a self-regulating earth. Part 10. Conclusion. Drifting with the current. After traveling with the river through the memory of the earth, through the evolution of life, through the long dialogues between humanity and nature, through the global enveloping rhythms of Deza, climate breath, the final part no longer needs to open any new space. It only needs to return. Return to what is simplest. Return to the body, to the breath, to this moment of lying still in the darkness. Part 10 is no longer storytelling. It is the withdrawal of the story. Because when night has grown deep enough, what the mind needs is not more meaning but permission to let go. Letting go of thoughts does not mean pushing them away. A river does not push leaves. It simply continues to flow, and the leaves release themselves. The mind is the same. When it is no longer forced to do anything, thoughts grow tired on their own. And when thoughts are tired, sleep arrives not as an achievement but as a natural return. In Carl Gustav Jung's view, sleep is not the absence of the mind, but a transfer of control from consciousness to deeper layers, where effort is no longer required. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "In sleep, consciousness retreats into the background." Part 10 is designed to make space for this retreat, not through commands, but through permission. Inviting the listener to breathe slowly is not about controlling the breath, but about noticing that the breath is already slow. When lying still, the body knows how to adjust. Breathing deepens, heart rate lowers, muscles soften. All of this happens without the intervention of will. The imagined river that appears here carries no information, no complex symbolism. It is only steady movement. It is not going anywhere. It does not need to arrive. This is a crucial point of the conclusion. It completely dissolves goal-oriented thinking. There is no need to finish sleeping, no need to sleep deeply. No need to sleep enough, only to drift. Jung wrote in The Symbolic Life, "Let things happen, do not interfere." Drifting with the current is letting things happen at its deepest level. When interference stops, the mind relaxes. And when tension fades, sleep appears as an ancient biological reflex. The river does not hurry. This is not consolation. It is a fact of nature. Flow does not know the concepts of late or early. It only knows the right rhythm. When the listener receives this, not intellectually but through sensation, something important occurs. The pressure of time dissolves. The pressure to complete today. The pressure to fix something. The pressure to prepare for tomorrow. All of these pressures belong to consciousness. And consciousness at night is allowed to rest. The earth does not hurry. It does not complete itself in a day. It does not repair itself in a night. It does not optimize every moment. It operates through very long cycles. And within those cycles, rest is not an interruption, but a necessary phase. Jung wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong." Part 10 leans fully toward nonsense, in the Jungian sense, not illogical, but beyond logic, without explanation, without structure, because sleep does not come from logic. It comes from the gentle dissolution of logic. And then the final line arrives not as a message, but as a soft confirmation. "And tonight you do not need to hurry." This sentence asks nothing of the listener. It simply removes an invisible burden, the burden of having to continue, to keep thinking, to keep the world under control. In The Undiscovered Self, Jung wrote, "Man needs difficulties. They are necessary for health." But he also understood that human beings cannot remain in difficulty forever. There are moments when effort must be set down. Night is such a moment. Part 10, therefore, is not the end of content, but the end of effort. When effort ends, consciousness no longer holds the central role. And when consciousness steps back, the deeper layers where dreaming, recovery, and rebalancing occur naturally move forward. The imagined river continues to flow, but the listener no longer follows it. Images fade, sounds recede. The body grows heavy, but it is a pleasant heaviness, the heaviness of being set down. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "The psyche is the greatest of all cosmic wonders, and one of its quiet miracles is this: it knows how to sleep." Part 10 does not need a conclusion, because sleep does not need a period. It only needs a space safe enough to happen. And this ending is that space. No need to follow anymore. No need to listen closely. No need to remember anything at all. Only the flow, and you drifting with it, unhurried. There is a very particular moment at night when the mind no longer asks questions yet has not completely vanished. A moment in between waking and sleep, between holding on and letting go. This extended Part 10 is placed precisely in that moment, not to guide, but to remain with you. Drifting is not giving up. Drifting is stopping the act of holding the breath, holding thoughts, holding the day in the hands, like something that must be protected. When the hands grow tired, the object falls by itself. No action is required here, only the end of action. The imagined river in this closing section no longer has a clear form. It does not need banks. It does not need direction. It does not need moonlight reflected on its surface. It becomes only background movement, like a heartbeat slowed until it is no longer heard. And it is precisely when it is no longer heard that the body begins to trust it is safe. In Carl Gustav Jung's view, this state corresponds to the ego relinquishing its central role. Jung did not see this as loss of control, but as a necessary return. He wrote in The Symbolic Life, "The ego cannot exist without the unconscious, nor the unconscious without the ego. But at night, this relationship is allowed to tilt toward the unconscious, not for the ego to disappear, but for it to rest. Breathing, when no longer watched, finds a longer rhythm on its own. The pause between inhalations stretches like a quiet permission. No one is counting. No one is adjusting. The body remembers how to breathe from long before language existed. Letting go of thoughts is not chasing each one away. It is no longer standing guard at the door. When there is no guard, thoughts pass through and then move on. No one holds them. No one demands conclusions." Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The unconscious is always seeking expression, but not every expression needs to occur in waking consciousness. Sleep is one of the safest spaces for the unconscious to continue its work reorganizing, restoring, rebalancing without the supervision of consciousness. In this extended ending, the message "no need to hurry" is no longer spoken directly. It seeps in through rhythm. Sentences slow, pauses lengthen, sensation lingers longer than words. This is how the unconscious receives meaning, not through concepts, but through lived time. The river does not hurry because it has nowhere it must go. It carries no goal. It carries only itself. When the listener allows themselves to drift with this image, a deep burden is lifted. The burden of having to become someone to achieve something, to end the day in a state of being okay. In Modern Man in Search of a Soul, Jung wrote, "Man is not a machine that can be adjusted." This extended part 10 honors that truth. It does not adjust the listener. It stops adjusting. And in that, stopping, the body rediscovers its original rhythm. The earth does not hurry, not only because it is vast, but because it trusts cycles. Night is not the failure of day. Sleep is not the failure of wakefulness. They are necessary phases of the same movement. When the mind recognizes this, it no longer resists drowsiness as an interruption, but accepts it as part of a deeper order. Jung wrote in, "The undiscovered, self-man's unconscious reflection of himself is the image of the world." When the world is felt as unhurried, the mind has no reason to hurry. And when there is no reason, the body lets go. This extended ending no longer maintains narrative structure. It dissolves structure. Sentences no longer lead anywhere. Meaning no longer lines up. Everything is allowed to leave its place like objects set down at the end of the day. No need to remember what was heard. No need to follow the voice. No need to try to sleep. Only to remain within the flow that is already happening. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "Transformation is not something we do, but something that happens to us." Sleep is the same. It is not an action. It is what occurs when everything has become soft enough. The imagined river now can no longer be clearly pictured. It becomes a very subtle sensation of movement within the body, like the moment just before the first dream arrives. There are no images, no words, only the feeling of being supported by a rhythm larger than oneself. Part 11. Rivers in Dreams and Unconscious Symbols. As consciousness begins to withdraw, the world does not disappear. It only changes language. What appears during the day as thoughts, plans, and responsibilities transforms at night into images, sensations, and movement. Within this space, rivers appear very often, not by chance, and not in need of hurried explanation. The river in dreams is not a specific river. It needs no name, no location. It is pure movement, the thing that continues after all waking structures have dissolved. For this reason, in depth psychology, the river becomes one of the most powerful symbols of the unconscious. Carl Gustav Jung did not view dreams as random products of the brain, but as the natural language of the psyche. He wrote in The Archetypes, "And the collective unconscious dreams are the direct expressions of unconscious psychic activity. And among the many images the unconscious chooses to speak of itself, the river is a particularly gentle one. It does not force. It does not confront. It simply flows. When the river in a dream flows calmly, without waves, without obstacles, this is not a good dream in a moral sense. It is a sign of an inner state acceptance. Not acceptance because everything has been understood, but acceptance because resistance has softened. In this state, the ego stops arguing with what is happening. It allows the flow to continue even without knowing where it leads. Hearing about this image before sleep has a subtle effect. It suggests that one does not need to resolve inner life before resting. Just as a calm river flows not because its journey is complete, but because it is no longer obstructed. By contrast, a flooding river in dreams often appears when emotions have been held back too long. But Jung did not see this as a bad sign. He understood it as the psyche's attempt at self-regulation. When consciousness does not allow an emotional current to flow, the unconscious finds a way to push it upward through stronger images. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "What is not brought to consciousness comes to us as fate. The flood does not come to punish. It comes to reveal what has been held back." But the purpose of Part 11 is not to analyze the flood, but to shift the listener's attitude toward it. No fear, no judgment, only recognition that a current is seeking a path. When this is heard before sleep, a very small shift occurs. The listener stops pressing emotions down, and this release makes sleep deeper, because the unconscious no longer needs to knock loudly when it knows the door is not locked. Crossing a river in dreams is one of the most ancient symbols of psychological transformation. Across cultures, crossing a river is linked to rites of passage, symbolic death, or entering a new phase of life. In Jungian language, it represents individuation, the process of becoming oneself. Jung wrote in The Symbolic Life, "The individuation process is the spontaneous realization of the whole man. Crossing is not about reaching the far bank to finish something. It is about leaving the old bank." In dreams, crossing a river often happens without a plan. The far side is unknown, yet one steps forward, and that step shows the psyche is ready for change. When the listener receives this image before sleep, it does not provoke action but trust. Trust that movements are happening inside even without awareness. Trust that one does not need to push oneself to be different tonight. Losing the river's course, an image of disorientation, often causes anxiety in dreams. But in Jung's view, this is not inner failure. It signals that old structures no longer guide effectively. Before a new order appears, the psyche often passes through ambiguity. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Losing the way is a very gentle form of darkness. It does not say, "You are broken." It says the old map no longer fits. And when heard within the safety of night, this can be deeply relieving, because it allows the listener not to know where they are going, at least in this sleep. The most important aspect of Part 11 is not decoding each dream, but the attitude towards symbols. Jung always emphasized that symbols are not meant to be exhausted by explanation, but to be lived with. He wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "A symbol is a living thing. The river, as a living symbol, continues to move within the unconscious, even while consciousness rests. It carries memory, emotion, and lived experience, not to resolve them, but to sustain the flow of psychological life." Part 11, told in a slow and gentle rhythm, helps the listener move from the need to understand oneself toward the ability to simply be with oneself. No dream analysis required, no journaling, no lessons to extract, only the acknowledgement that beneath waking awareness, a current never stops. Jung wrote in The Undiscovered Self, "The unconscious is not a chaos but a cosmos. The river in dreams is an image of that cosmos, a form of order that does not require control." When the listener senses this, an invisible worry dissolves, the fear that if one sleeps, everything will fall apart. It will not. Everything is still moving. This is why Part 11 is especially suited for deep sleep. It does not guide sleep through technique, but through trust in the unconscious. Trust that when consciousness rests, it is not emptiness, but another space at work. As the voice continues evenly, the dream river becomes less distinct. It fades, like all images before sleep, but its feeling remains the sense that inside you there is a current that knows the way. And when that feeling is deep enough, you do not need to enter sleep. You only need to stop standing on the shore watching. The river continues. Dreaming begins, and you are allowed to drift into it very gently. Part 12. The slow rhythm of the river and the slow rhythm of sleep. There is something rarely noticed. A river never moves fast. Even when the current is strong, when waterfalls crash, when floods rise, the essence of the flow remains a slow continuation shaped by gravity and terrain. There is no hurry in nature, only different rhythms of the same movement. And when we watch a river long enough, we begin to understand that slowness is not stagnation, but the safest way to travel far. Sleep is the same. Sleep does not arrive when we command it. It comes when the body stops resisting, when the inner systems of circulation, breathing, and the nervous system quietly agree that there is no threat left to watch for. And like the river, this agreement cannot be forced. The more we push, the more it overflows. The more we control, the more control slips away. A river does not choose the shortest path. It chooses the easiest one. Easy here does not mean lazy, but optimal in a deep sense. The least friction, the least expenditure, the least damage. Hard rock is bypassed. Steep terrain slows the flow. There is no conflict, no confrontation, only continuous adjustment. In the physiology of sleep, the same process unfolds. The body does not fall asleep because it is exhausted, but because it stops bracing itself. As tension decreases, hormones shift, heart rate lowers, brain waves change phase. This is not a sudden event, but a sequence of gentle transitions, just like water changing direction at a bend. Carl Gustav Jung viewed this transition not only physiologically, but psychologically. He wrote in The Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche. The psyche is a self-regulating system. Sleep is one of the clearest expressions of self-regulation. It requires no plan, no willpower, only the right conditions, just as water needs only terrain in order to flow. The river bends instead of resisting. This is one of the most important images of Part 12. Bending is not weakness. Bending is long-term survival. Rivers that try to force a straight path through every obstacle eventually break themselves apart. Rivers that know how to bend endure for millions of years. In inner life, bending corresponds to selective letting go, not abandoning everything but releasing what no longer needs to be held at night. Plans, self-judgment, worries about tomorrow. When these are set down, the body no longer has reason to remain alert. Jung wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "We cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. Night is the afternoon of the day. It requires a different program, not one of effort, but of permission." A key aspect of Part 12 is its shift from doing to allowing. Allow the breath to find its own rhythm. Allow the eyelids to grow heavy. Allow thoughts to thin out on their own. When the listener realizes there is nothing more to do, a very ancient biological reflex is activated, the reflex of safety. Sleep comes when the body stops resisting. This is not philosophy, it is biology. Tension is resistance. Effort is resistance. Even the desire to have to sleep is a form of resistance. And like water, energy that is resisted will seek another outlet in restlessness, drifting thoughts, or wakeful wandering. Jung wrote in The Symbolic Life, "What you resist persists." Part 12 does not try to convince the listener to stop thinking. It simply makes thinking unnecessary by changing the rhythm. When the rhythm slows enough, thoughts dissolve on their own, just as waves settle when the wind stops. Like water, the more you press, the more it spills. This is a truth the body understands well, though consciousness often forgets it. When we try to sleep, the body receives the signal that something important is being missed, and so it stays awake. When we stop trying, the body receives the opposite signal. There is no danger, and so it rests. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Jung wrote, "In deepest sleep, we return to a state of primal trust." Part 12 is built to reawaken that primal trust, not through affirmations, but through rhythm. Sentences are even. Images are soft. There is no climax, no conclusion to remember, only a spreading sensation safety. The slow rhythm of the river is not measured in minutes or hours. It is measured in endurance. And sleep too is not measured by duration, but by the quality of letting go. Deep sleep is not long sleep. It is unguarded sleep. Jung wrote in, "The undiscovered self-man is not a machine that can be adjusted." Part 12 respects this. It does not adjust the listener. It withdraws all intention to adjust. And in that withdrawal, the body rediscovers its natural rhythm. When the listener unconsciously synchronizes their breathing with the rhythm of the narration, something important happens. Consciousness relinquishes its central role. And when consciousness steps back, sleep does not need to be summoned. The river continues to flow, not fast, not slow, only at its own rhythm. And sleep is the same. Part 12 does not end with the instruction, go to sleep. It ends with a deep permission. Permission for the body to do what it has known how to do since before language existed. When that permission is clear, gentle, and safe, nothing more is needed. No effort, no control, no speed, only slowing down enough to drift. Part 13. When humans disappear, the river continues. There is a particular kind of fatigue modern humans carry into the night. It does not come from physical labor, nor entirely from specific thoughts. It arises from something deeper and quieter. The feeling that if one does not stay attentive, the world will fall apart. That if one does not watch, think ahead, predict, and prepare, something important will slip away. Part 13 is placed here to gently lift that burden. Not through argument, not through logic, but through a very ancient, calm, and honest perspective. When humans disappear, the river continues to flow. Before humans existed, the river was already there, flowing across unnamed continents, through valleys without footprints, through eras with no observers to record them. The river did not need an audience. It did not need recognition. It did not need to be remembered. It existed because flowing is its nature. And after humans, the river will still continue, not as a challenge, but as a gentle truth. Not pessimistic, but deeply orderly. There are things that do not depend on the ego. In Carl Gustav Jung's depth psychology, realizing that one is not the center of all processes is not a loss. It is one of the most healing insights. Jung wrote in The Undiscovered Self-Man is a part of nature, not her master. Part 13 unfolds this not as a concept, but as a feeling. The feeling that the world does not require us to stay awake in order to exist. That the deeper order of life does not collapse when we close our eyes. Flow does not need to be witnessed in order to exist. This sentence has a powerful lullaby quality because it touches a hidden fear of consciousness. If I stop watching, will everything be okay? Part 13 answers, with the silence of nature, everything is still happening. In the collective unconscious, this is the image of a self-operating world, a cosmos. Jung wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious. The unconscious is not a chaos, but a cosmos. Seen this way, the river becomes not only a symbol of the personal unconscious, but of an order beyond the individual. An order that does not require supervision, guarding, or sleepless nights. For the listener before sleep, this is a deep liberation. Much nighttime tension does not come from too much to do, but from carrying too large a role. The role of guardian of the world, the one responsible for everything. Part 13 gently lays that role down. Not by saying you are unimportant, but by saying the opposite. You are important enough that you do not need to hold everything. The world has known how to exist long before you. Jung wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, the individual is not only a social being, but also a cosmic fact. To be a cosmic fact does not mean carrying the universe. It means belonging to it. And when one belongs, one does not need to control. Part 13 softens the ego not by erasing it, but by placing it in its proper position, not central, not peripheral, but held. When the ego softens, the body receives a clear signal of safety. The nervous system relaxes. Breathing lengthens. The body understands that no urgent task remains. The strongest lullaby message of this section is whispered, not declared. You do not need to guard the world. This sentence touches a deep layer of existential exhaustion. Exhaustion from having to be present, to know, to ensure. When it settles into the night, many invisible tensions fall away. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, the decisive question for man is he related to something infinite or not? Part 13 answers, not with philosophy, but with feeling yes. There is something larger that continues whether we are awake or not, and this connection to the infinite allows rest without fear. Tonight you are allowed to rest, not because you have done enough, not because you deserve it, but because rest is part of the order of life, just as the river rests in not needing to change its nature. The river does not worry whether it flows enough. It does not ask whether it will still be a river tomorrow. It simply continues, and in that continuation, everything else adjusts. Jung wrote in The Symbolic Life, "Nature is not moral or immoral, it is simply natural." Part 13 borrows this simply natural quality to return the listener to a state without self-judgment. No need to evaluate today. No need to fix emotions. No need to prepare for tomorrow. Only to step away from the role of guardian. When the listener allows themselves to disappear, in the gentlest sense, disappearing from the duty of watching, from the responsibility of staying awake, something natural occurs. Sleep arrives not as an achievement, but as a dissolving into a larger flow. The river continues. No one needs to watch. No one needs to remember. And you as well, you are allowed not to be present, not to think, not to guard, only to lie within an order already unfolding and let the night do its work. No hurry, no fear, no need to stay here any longer. Part 14. The river as a silent caregiver. There is a creed, form of care humans rarely recognize, because it is quiet, formless, and leaves no obvious trace. It is care that asks for no response, no gratitude, no recognition, no proof of worthiness. Part 14 opens into this kind of care through a very ancient image, deeply familiar to the unconscious, the river. The river nourishes without demand. It does not ask who has done well enough to deserve water. It does not choose who receives fertile silt. It does not weigh morality or merit. Where water flows, life is touched. In a world accustomed to conditions, evaluations, and comparisons, this kind of nourishment carries profound, calming power. For the listener, before sleep, this is not just a natural image, but a psychological experience. Much inner exhaustion does not come from lack of effort, but from constantly having to meet expectations of others, of society, and eventually of oneself. Part 14 gently places the listener into another space where there are no questions of who are you, what have you achieved, or are you enough. There is only presence. In Carl Gustav Jung's depth psychology, this presence is linked to a fundamental archetype, the Great Mother. This is not the personal mother with history wounds or expectations, but the primordial archetype of containment, support, and the sustaining of life. Jung wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, the mother archetype is the matrix of all life, the source of nourishment and growth. The river in Part 14 is a natural expression of this matrix. It nourishes not through advice or rules, but through steadfast presence. The unconscious recognizes this immediately because it responds more deeply to stability than to reassurance. Not choosing this is the first healing aspect of the river image. In human life, being chosen often equals being loved. Not being chosen equals being left behind. But the river does not operate by this logic. It does not distinguish fertile land from barren ground. It does not prioritize center over periphery. In Jungian language, this reflects how the unconscious operates. It contains everything. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "The unconscious is not a dumping ground for rejected contents, but a living, autonomous system." Part 14 allows the listener to feel that the neglected, rejected, or undervalued parts of themselves are also allowed to remain. When existence no longer needs to be earned, tension dissolves, and that dissolution opens space for deep sleep. Non-judgment, this is the strongest lullaby quality of the entire section. Judgment, whether external or internal, activates vigilance. The body cannot sleep deeply while feeling evaluated. The river as a silent caregiver offers no feedback. It does not say right. It does not say wrong. It says nothing. Jung wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, The soul has its own requirements which differ from those of the outer world. One of those requirements is to be left in peace unexamined. Part 14 meets this requirement by creating a symbolic space without scales, rankings, or comparisons. Not better, not worse, just being. Unhurried, the river's care has no schedule. It does not rush seeds to grow. It does not force seasons to arrive early. Everything unfolds in its own rhythm. This stands in sharp contrast to modern life, where even rest becomes a task to be completed quickly. Jung wrote in The Symbolic Life, nature never hurries, yet everything is accomplished. Part 14 is saturated with this spirit. It does not try to lead the listener into sleep through technique. It allows sleep to arise naturally when pressure disappears. When hurry fades, the body receives the signal of safety. And when safety is present, sleep finds its way. Linking the river to the Great Mother archetype is not meant to explain, but to remind. To remind the listener of a very early sensation being held without being gripped, nourished without being controlled. This sensation needs no words. It lives in the body. Jung wrote, in memories, dreams, reflections, the deepest experiences are the most simple. Part 14 is such a simple experience. Few images, few concepts, only a slow spreading feeling I am being supported. Being supported does not mean problems are solved. It means they do not need to be solved right now. This distinction is crucial. When the body feels supported, it no longer needs to brace itself. And when bracing ends, the nervous system shifts into rest. Jung wrote in The Undiscovered Self, the individual is sustained by the unconscious. The river in Part 14 embodies this sustenance, unconditional, wordless, and undemanding. Being allowed to rest, this is the final and deepest gift of this section. Not being fixed, not being improved, not being guided, only being allowed to be. In the unconscious, this is what the primordial child within each person has always sought. And when it finds this, it stops calling out. Part 14 thus becomes a final embrace before deep sleep. No more words are needed. No more images. Only steady presence, accepting spacious without demand. The river does not say, go to sleep. It simply remains. And in that remaining, the body understands there is nothing left to do. No proving, no effort, no alertness. Only being held within silent support as life has been held long before humans had words. And when that sensation deepens, sleep is no longer a goal, but a dissolving into an invisible embrace, slow, warm, and safe. Final closing. When the flow no longer needs a guide, then after all the currents that have been spoken of, something very gentle happens. There is nothing left that needs to continue. Not because the story has ended, but because you no longer need to carry it any further. Like a river after long bends reaching a stretch of calm water, no push required, no direction needed. In this moment, what matters is not what was heard, but what no longer needs to be held. You do not need to remember each idea, each image, each symbol. The unconscious does not work through memory. It works through absorption, and everything that needed to settle has had time to do so. Perhaps your body feels slightly heavier now. Not heavy in a burdensome way, but in a pleasant way, like lying on warm ground or being wrapped in a familiar blanket. This is not fatigue, it is trust. Trust that you do not need to stay alert. Trust that things can be left where they are. The river in this story never asked you to understand it. It never asked you to follow it to the end. It only invited you to be with it for a while long enough for the body to remember something very old, that living is not always moving forward, but sometimes allowing oneself to drift. In Jung's view, the unconscious is not chaos to be controlled, but a deeper order where what needs healing will find its way when conditions are safe enough. And safety at night does not come from more thinking, but from stopping thinking at the right moment. Now you do not need to do anything. You do not need to fall asleep immediately. You do not need to relax deliberately. You do not need to change your breathing. If any of these are needed, the body will do them on its own. Your only role is not to interfere, If thoughts still pass through, let them drift like leaves on the water. No need to follow them. No need to label them. Leaves drifting are the river's work. Resting is yours. Perhaps tonight not everything will be resolved, but like the river, not everything needs to be resolved in a single stretch. Some things only need to be carried gently through the night, and in the morning they may be lighter, or at least farther from the tense shore. What matters is this: you do not need to stay present to supervise the process. The unconscious knows the way. The body knows the rhythm. And sleep like water, finding low ground will arrive when nothing blocks it. If you notice carefully, there is no clear moment called falling asleep. There is only a vague moment when you stop caring whether you are asleep or not. That moment is the doorway. Tonight you do not need to bring the entire day with you into sleep. You can set it down on the bank. The river will continue. The world will continue without you holding it. Let your shoulders drop a little more. Let your jaw loosen. Let your forehead soften. Not because you are trying to relax, but because there is no longer a reason to tense. If one last image remains, let it be this: water flowing quietly in the night. No bright light, no clear sound, only a gentle background movement. You are not standing on the bank. You are not observing. You are within it, being carried with no destination required. And as these words fade, as you no longer hear each sentence clearly, it is not because you have lost focus. It is because you are doing exactly what is needed now. Nothing more is required, only to remain still. Good night. May your sleep be deep, gentle, and safe enough to release everything that does not need to be carried further. The river continues to flow, and tonight you are allowed to rest,